Hey everyone, this is Thinking Big by A Bug's Life. It's volume 3. I got this when I was a little kid, and hope you guys like it. This is something different, and maybe it's a bit more for like a children type video to make them fall asleep, or like for a baby or something. But hopefully it brings back memories of when you were a child or a little baby. Well, I doubt you can remember when you were a baby, but you know what I mean. And hopefully this gives you the same effect and makes you fall asleep. So let's get started. I'm kind of rushing because it's kind of a bit long. Well, it doesn't look that long because it's a children's book, but it's gonna take a bit of a while to read through. So let's get started. I like the noise of the crinkling. It says this book belongs to Antonio and Danny. I wrote this when I was little. Danny is my brother, and that's my real name. But I like people to call me Tony. Ouch, said Dot. Stop pinching my antenna, you big meanies. Dot meant it too. Those ant boys had been teasing her all day, and she was sick of it. Well, she would show them. Someday she would have wings, then the boys would be sorry. They would wish they could fly too. Dot chased the boys down one of the tunnels in the anthill. They ran around a corner. Dot followed, but she couldn't find them. Then she saw a glimmer of light coming through a hole in the tunnel. The boys had dug all the way through the ceiling to the outside. Dot raced toward the hole. You're gonna get in big trouble, she shouted after them. You're not allowed to make holes in the ceiling. Dot scrambled up through the hole and popped outside. The boys ran fast, but Dot knew she had to catch up to them. Struggling, Dot stretched her wings. Maybe they weren't grown in yet, but she could at least try using them. Poor girl. She began flapping her wings as hard as she could. Then she leaped into the air. She was flying. Suddenly, Dot hit the ground with a crash. Well, maybe she had just been jumping. Dot, someone said sternly. It was her mother, the queen. What did I tell you about playing rough? That I shouldn't do it until my wings grow in, Dot mumbled. That's right, the queen replied. Just be patient. It will happen any day now. Just then, Dot's big sister, Ada, came over. Ada was in training to be queen, and she was always bossing Dot around. Dot, said Ada, you should. Excuse me? Dot interrupted. You're not the queen yet, Ata. Suddenly, a big grain stalk fell down. It landed right on Ata. All the other ants were worried. Luckily, Ata wasn't hurt. Sorry, called Flick. He was wearing his new grain-picking invention. I'm so sorry, Ata. I didn't see you there. Flick, please put down your silly invention and just get to work, Ata said sternly. That's Flick. That's Atta. Dot ran after Flick. "Hey, wait up," she cried. "Oh, hello, Princess," Flick said. He was always nice to Dot. He made her feel like a grown-up aunt. "I like your inventions," Dot told him. She wanted to cheer up her friend. Dot knew Flick worked hard trying to invent things to help the colony. "Well, you're the only one who does," Flick replied, smiling weakly. "I'm beginning to think nothing I do works." And that's Dot, in case you didn't know. "I know what you mean," said Dot. "I keep trying to fly, but it's not working either. My mother says it's because I'm too little." "Being little's not such a bad thing," Flick told her. Then he picked up a rock. "Here," he said to Dot, "pretend this is a seed." Dot looked at the rock. It wasn't a seed. It was a rock. Flick sure could be silly sometimes. "Just pretend it's a seed," Flick urged. "Everything that made that giant tree over there is already contained inside this tiny little seed. All it needs is some time and a little bit of sunshine and rain." Dot was confused. "This rock will be a tree?" No, Flick said. "Remember, we're only pretending it's a seed. Then the seed will become a tree. It's like you." Dot giggled. She hoped she would never be a tree. "What I'm trying to say is, you just have to give yourself some time to grow," Flick explained. "You're still a seed." "I get it," declared Dot, smiling. Dot was sure glad Flick was around to help her understand things. But a few months later, Flick got into trouble again. This time Atta told him to leave the colony and never return. Dot was sad. She would miss Flick a lot. Poor girl. Uh-oh. Shortly after Flick left, the mean grasshoppers came to the colony. Every season they made the ants pick grain for them. This time the grasshoppers were really angry because the ants had not collected enough food. Dot and the blueberries were frightened. They ran to hide in their clubhouse. While she was hiding, Dot overheard one of the grasshoppers say that they were going to squish the queen. "I've got to do something," Dot cried. "I'll find Flick. He'll help me." Before the other blueberries, these are the blueberries, could stop her, Dot dashed out of her hiding place and started running. Immediately, the grasshopper spotted Dot and started to chase her. She ran through the grass until she came to a cliff. But when Dot tried to leap out of the way of the grasshoppers, she fell right over the edge. Dot closed her eyes and began pumping her wings as hard as she could. Suddenly, she wasn't falling anymore. When Dot opened her eyes, she couldn't believe it. She was flying. Dot flew and flew, looking for Flick. She searched through the forests and along dried riverbeds. Finally, after a whole day of searching, she spotted him. "Flick, stop," she cried as she flew down to him. "Dot," Flick gasped. "What are you doing here?" "You have to come back and help," Dot said. "I heard the grasshoppers say that they were gonna squish my mom. Flick bowed his head sadly. I can't help, he said. Dot couldn't believe what she was hearing. Please, Flick, she begged. I can't do anything right, sighed Flick. I just make things worse. After all, my invention almost squished Atta. Poor guy. Dot remembered the story Flick had told her about the little rock growing into the big tree. Flick had used that story to cheer her up. Well, if it had worked for her, then it should work for Flick too. Dot found a rock and handed it to Flick. Pretend it's a seed, okay? She said. Slowly, a grin spread across Flick's face. Dot was getting more grown up every day. Together, the two ants headed back home. When they got there, Flick managed to outsmart the grasshoppers and rescue the entire colony, including the queen. And it was all thanks to his little friend, Dot, who dared to think big. And that's the end of the story. Right here it says, Dear Blueberry Journal. Today, some of the boys poked a hole right through a ceiling in our ant nest. Boy, was my mom mad. It takes a lot of hard work to build an ant nest. First, the worker ants have to clear out all the plants from around where they are going to build. Then they dig to make lots and lots of tunnels and rooms deep beneath the ground. Sometimes they dig down 6 feet or more. There are rooms for sleeping and rooms for storing food, and lots of other rooms too. To some, it might look like a giant maze, but to me, it's home, sweet home. Till next time, Dot. That's the finished book. This is a Bug's Life series. It's the 12 editions collection. I believe I have the first 3, but the rest I did not buy when I was little, because I must have forgot. So, it teaches a valuable lesson that you should think big, and you'll get far. I hope this helped some of you fall asleep. Hopefully it helps you relax a bit. If you're about to fall asleep, then I wish you good night. And if it's daytime for you, I wish you a good day. Thanks for watching.